Well, this might just be the biggest improvement I have ever seen. Let's talk about it. Before that, this video is brought to you by VIPCDKDeals.com. CDK Deals is a website dedicated to getting you the best prices on games and software, and right now you can get a Windows 10 Pro OEM key for an insanely low price. Just find the best price and apply my special discount code GPC20 for an additional 30% off. You can also check out securely with PayPal, and once the payment is cleared, you should get access to the code both in your account as well as in your email. In order to activate the new copy of Windows 10, just search Activate under Windows and type in your key. So if you want to learn more, be sure to click the link in the description below. So guys, when the RTX 3080 was released, and I'll get to why we're talking about the 3080 in just a second here, but again, when it was released, it felt like one of the biggest improvements in terms of performance that we'd seen in a very, very long time. When you compare it to the RTX 2080, it absolutely smashed its face in, and at the time, a lot of people, me included, felt like the RTX 3080 was a very good 4K card. I mean, it was coming in at around $700, or at least that's what you were supposed to be able to purchase it for. Whether or not you could actually do this kind of up in the air, but in any case, yeah, you're supposed to be able to get it for $700, and at that price point, it was giving you an incredible amount of performance, and it did give you 10 gigabytes of VRAM, which at the time we did feel like was maybe a little bit on the edge, but still very sufficient for 4K gaming. Now today, 10 gigabytes is definitely more on the edge, but again, at that time, it did feel pretty decent, and you also got a decent amount of memory bandwidth as well. So everybody wanted an RTX 3080, but fast forward to today, and the RTX 4070 Ti and 4070 are not looked at in the same light. But why would that be? I mean, especially when you take a look at the RTX 4070 coming in at $600 and giving you more video memory, and according to basically every single reputable source, around the same performance as the RTX 3080. Why would more people not be interested in the RTX 4070? And I think it has to do with its memory bandwidth. I think a lot of people don't consider the RTX 4070 a great 4K card because of its lower 504 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth when compared to the RTX 3080, which had 760 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth, a substantial increase. Now, the RTX 4070 does definitely have the upper hand when it comes to cache, and that can help out in those memory bandwidth limited scenarios, but of course, more bandwidth will always be better. So when Galax sent over this RTX 4070, I was very interested to see if the memory bandwidth really would be an issue with this, as I did see some pretty substantial gains on the 4070 Ti, but the 4070, even though it's very similar to the 4070 Ti, in fact has the exact same amount of memory bandwidth, it has a lot less cores, so I didn't feel like it was going to be as much of an issue when we took a look at this card. So that's exactly what I did. But guys, I found something out really strange about the RTX 4070 as I was unboxing it, and that was the power connector. I saw just one 8-pin, and that made me a little bit concerned, as when I go to overclock this graphics card, that's definitely going to limit its overclocking potential with just one 8-pin. But there was more weirdness to the story, because as I began to overclock the RTX 4070, things got really strange, which, by the way, I do want to mention, the Galax RTX 4070 can be overclocked through their Extreme Tuner app, which is actually really useful. I know it sounds gimmicky, but when you're in the middle of overclocking something, not having to Alt-tab or have another whole monitor off to the side that you need to tab out to actually interact with is a pretty huge deal. So the mobile app is actually really helpful when overclocking their cards. But enough about that. What was so weird about the RTX 4070 and its overclocking? Well, let me show you guys. So I wanted to see if the memory bandwidth really was an issue, and I was able to get plus 1250 on the memory and a decent plus 180 on the core, so nothing too crazy. And you know, right away the performance results were pretty much what I expected. If we take a look at Fortnite Epic settings, DirectX 12 with ray tracing on and DLSS on quality, the RTX 4070 stock actually did pretty well even without an overclock. The 1% and 0.1% lows looked pretty decent, and the overclock did help a little bit, but it didn't add a ton of extra performance, so it seemed like the memory bandwidth wasn't too much of an issue. But there's something I found out very strange about the RTX 4070, and that's that you can undervolt this thing like crazy. So for example, the RTX 4070 stock with the single 8-pin was drawing 199 watts of power, but after an overclock, the maximum power I saw being drawn while running this game was just 154 watts. Now, that is less than half the power draw of an RTX 3080. So if this undervolted RTX 4070 at a maximum power draw of 154 watts can match or maybe even exceed the stock performance, then we're talking about a card that's giving you the same amount of performance as well as more video memory and more features for potentially less than half the power draw. And that has got to be one of the biggest improvements I have ever seen in any generation. Sure, it's not being directly translated into performance, but this is a big deal for a lot of budget gamers out there who are trying to make the most out of their system, or maybe they're just trying to make the most out of their power bill, as 320 watt graphics cards, or these days upwards of 400 plus watts for a graphics card, is a lot of power. And if you can shave that down all the way to 150 watts roughly on average, that's a big deal. So where did it land in terms of performance? Well, taking a look at that chart once again here, what you're going to notice is not only was the performance good, it was actually still better than the stock RTX 4070 while drawing around nearly 50 watts less, making this this has got to be the most efficient card possibly ever created for gaming. Don't hold me to that, but it's certainly the most efficient that I've ever seen. Now, moving on to Cyberpunk 2077, here we saw a similar thing where the RTX 4070 stock was pretty good and didn't seem to be suffering from memory bandwidth, and adding the extra overclock, while it helped, again, seems to indicate memory bandwidth isn't too much of a problem on this card. And even when we do the undervolt, while it was a little bit slower here, it's really overall not that much slower than the stock RTX 4070. And then finally, taking a look at 3D Mark, as I don't want you guys to be looking at charts all day, we can see here that the undervolted RTX 4070 is once again still faster than the stock RTX 4070 and not that much slower than a fully overclocked RTX 4070, at least the one that has a roughly 200 watt limit. Now that we can see RTX 4070s for under $600, getting more video memory, potentially the same or more performance, as well as, if you're willing to undervolt it, around half the power draw of an RTX 3080, is it worth purchasing over a secondhand RTX 3080? And I think the answer to that question is yes. I mean, sure, I'd like to see it at around $500, but if we take a look, for example, at this Galax model, which was sent to me by Galax, which thanks guys for sending that over so I could make this video, they're currently running a deal for around, I believe, $588 after a promo code, and $588 honestly isn't too far off what you would expect potentially in previous generations to be paying over potentially an MSRP reference $500 70 class card. So honestly, with everything that the RTX 4070 brings to the table at less than $600, I do think it is a decent purchase, and personally, I would definitely rather buy a new RTX 4070 than a used RTX 3080, unless that 3080 was significantly, and I mean significantly cheaper, because they've been run hard and long at this point. Their warranties are starting to come up, and they're just going to be way less efficient and giving you less video memory. For if you're only saving about $100, I just don't know if that's really worth it. So I do think the RTX 4090 is a great graphics card in terms of it's the fastest one available, and then the RTX 4070 is great because of how efficient it is and how much performance it's bringing for the amount of money they're asking, at least today, on the models that are less than $600. So if you agree with that and you want to pick up an RTX 4070 and you want to show Galax some love for also helping me out to create this video, I will have a link in the description below to go ahead and check it out. But if you're not interested, hey, hopefully you'll learn something about the RTX 40 series, specifically 4070 in today's video. I know I was shocked. If you did, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I think that'll do it for today's video. If you made it to the end of the video, be sure to drop a like. Every time you do so, AMD and Nvidia release new GPUs. Also, if you want to see more, check out one of these related videos. You won't be disappointed.